What happens when the mate bond you've waited your whole life for becomes the weapon that destroys you? For Elara Morven, life as an Omega in the Silvercrest pack meant living in shadows. She was the girl no one saw, the wolf no one wanted, the one whose scent of lavender and morning dew was too soft for a world that valued power above all else. But on the night of the Harvest Moon ceremony, when Alpha Kale Thorn stood before the entire pack and declared her his fated mate, everything changed. The bond snapped into place like lightning through her veins, golden and inevitable and terrifying. She felt his wolf recognize hers, felt the moon goddess herself weaving their souls together. For one perfect moment, Elara believed she was finally enough. And what happens next? No one was prepared for. The Silvercrest pack territory sprawled across the northern mountains, a stronghold of old power and older pride. Elara had grown up in the lowest tier of the pack house, in rooms that smelled of damp stone and forgotten things. Her parents, Marcus and Lydia, kept to themselves, their sense always tinged with an undercurrent of fear she'd never understood. They'd raised her to be small, to be quiet, to never draw attention. "Your wolf is weak," her mother had told her since childhood. "It's better if you don't shift at all." So Elara hadn't. 23 years old, and she'd never felt her wolf truly wake. Just a sleeping presence, a whisper in the back of her mind that never quite surfaced. The Harvest Moon ceremony was held in the great clearing at the heart of Pack Lands, where ancient oak trees formed a cathedral of branches overhead. Torches blazed in iron sconces, casting dancing shadows across the assembled wolves. The pack numbered over 200 strong, alphas with their commanding presence and sense of dominance, betas forming the strong middle class, and omegas like herself, relegated to the outer edges of the gathering. Alpha Kale stood on the raised stone platform, magnificent in his authority. At 28, he was everything an alpha should be, tall and broad-shouldered, with dark hair that fell to his collar and eyes that gleamed amber in the firelight. His scent rolled over the crowd like a storm front. Forest and embers, ozone and steel. Every unmated female in the pack had hoped for his attention. Every father had presented his daughter. And when the mate bond ceremony began, when the moon goddess's light touched them all, it was Elara's scent that called to him. She'd felt it happen. The world narrowed to just the two of them. His head whipped toward her, his eyes widening, his wolf rising to the surface. The mate mark began to form on her collarbone, a swirling pattern that glowed with silver light. The bond thrummed between them, a living thing, pulling them together with inevitable force. Kyle crossed the clearing in powerful strides. The crowd parted before him. Elara's heart hammered against her ribs as he stopped in front of her, towering over her smaller frame. For a heartbeat, she saw wonder in his face, saw the recognition, saw destiny. Then she saw him look past her to the crowd, saw him register who she was, what she was. The scent of his wolf shifted, embers cooling, steel hardening. "Or no," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. The single word echoed through the clearing like a death knell. Elara's breath caught. "What?" "I, Alpha Kale Thorn of the Silvercrest pack, reject you, Elara Morven, as my fated mate." His voice rang out formal and cold, following the ancient words of severance. "I sever this bond by right of Alpha law and my own free will." The pain hit like a blade between her ribs. The mate mark on her collarbone burned, silver light twisting into black. She gasped, doubling over, clutching at her chest. It felt like her soul was being torn in half, like every good thing the moon goddess had promised was being ripped away. "I don't understand," she whispered, looking up at him through tears she couldn't stop. "The bond. You felt it." I felt it, Cale said, and his scent was laced with something bitter. Regret, maybe, or shame. But his face remained hard. And I choose to break it. You are an Omega, Ilara, unmated at 23. Your wolf is so weak you've never shifted. You think I'm going to bind myself to weakness? Ruin my bloodline with your inferior genetics? A female voice laughed from the crowd. Seraphina, the pack's head enforcer, stepped forward. She was beautiful in a cruel way, with sharp features and dark red hair. Her scent of cinnamon and iron curled through the air like smoke. How pathetic. The moon goddess must be playing a joke. Seraphina is right, Kyle continued, and Ilara saw the way he glanced at the stunning beta female. Saw something pass between them. My mate needs to be strong, powerful. Someone who can stand beside an alpha, but not hide behind him. The bond severed completely. Ilara screamed. It wasn't a choice. The sound was torn from her throat as invisible chains snapped inside her chest. The pain was beyond anything she'd imagined. Worse than breaking bones. Worse than silver poisoning. This was soul deep, a fundamental wrongness that made her wolf howl in agony in the depths of her mind. She collapsed to her knees on the packed earth. Blood trickled from her nose. The mate mark on her collarbone cracked like shattered glass, pieces of it flaking away to ash. Someone get her out of here, Cale ordered, already turning away, already dismissing her like she was nothing. She's no longer welcome at pack ceremonies. 2 guards grabbed her arms, hauling her to her feet. Ilara's legs wouldn't support her. The pain radiated through every nerve, every bone, and she looked wildly around for her parents in the crowd, for anyone who might help. Marcus and Lydia stood near the back, their faces pale. Her mother's scent reeked of fear. When Ilara's eyes met hers, Lydia looked away. Please, Ilara gasped, as the guards dragged her toward the edge of the clearing. Please, someone. No one moved. No one spoke. 200 wolves watched in silence as she was removed from their midst like garbage. The guards dumped her at the territory border, the northern edge, where the mountains became steep and the forest grew dense and dangerous, where the temperature dropped below freezing at night and rogue wolves hunted anything weak enough to prey upon. Alpha's orders, one guard said, not unkindly. You're exiled. If you cross back onto pack lands, you'll be killed on sight. They left her there as the sun set, as the temperature began to plummet, as the first snowflakes of an early winter storm began to fall. Ilara lay on the frozen ground and felt the bond's absence like a missing limb. She was hollow, broken. The pain in her chest wouldn't stop, a constant agony that made it hard to breathe, hard to think, hard to want to survive. But somewhere deep inside, deeper than the pain, deeper than the humiliation, her wolf stirred. And for the first time in 23 years, it wasn't sleeping anymore. It was waking, and it was furious. The storm came fast and brutal, the way mountain weather always did. Within an hour, the snow fell so thick, Ilara couldn't see more than a few feet ahead. The wind howled through the trees like hunting wolves, driving ice crystals into her skin. Her thin ceremony dress, the one she'd worn with such hope, was useless against the cold. She stumbled through the forest, arms wrapped around herself, trying to find shelter. Anything. A hollow tree, an overhang of rock. Her teeth chattered so hard she bit her tongue. The taste of blood filled her mouth. The scent of her own fear hung heavy in the air, mixing with the sharp pine and frozen earth of the wilderness. Every step was agony, not just from the cold, but from the severed bond still burning in her chest. She'd heard stories of wolves who died from bond rejection, hearts that simply stopped beating, minds that broke under the trauma. Maybe that would be a mercy. A howl split the night, not the wind, but something alive, something hunting. Alara's heart lurched. Rogue wolves. They ran in packs of 3 or 4. And they didn't follow pack law, didn't honor territory, didn't show mercy to the weak. She ran, slipped on ice, fell, dragged herself up and ran again. Her lungs burned. Her legs were going numb. The cold was settling into her bones, making her movements slow and clumsy. Another howl, closer now. Then another, from a different direction. They were surrounding her. Alara crashed through a thicket of brambles and stumbled into a small clearing. At its center stood the ruins of an old barn, half collapsed, its roof mostly gone, but 3 walls still standing. She didn't think. She just ran for it, diving through the open doorway into the darker interior. The barn smelled of rotted hay and old wood. Snow drifted through the holes in the roof. It wasn't much, but it was something. Alara crawled into the farthest corner and pressing her back against the wall, trying to make herself small. The howls grew closer, circling. She could smell them now, the sour, wild scent of rogues, tinged with hunger and violence. At least 3, maybe more. Alara closed her eyes. Her body was shutting down, hypothermia setting in. Her fingers were white. She couldn't feel her toes anymore. The pain from the severed bond pulsed with every heartbeat. Weaker now. Everything was getting weaker. This is it, she thought. This is how it ends. Part of her felt relief. The suffering would be over. The humiliation. The loneliness. All of it would just stop. She thought of Cale's face as he rejected her. The disgust in his eyes. The way he'd chosen his reputation over destiny. Over her. Her wolf growled. A sound so faint she almost didn't hear it. But it was there. Angry. Defiant. "I'm sorry," Alara told it silently. "I'm sorry I was too weak to save us." The barn door creaked. Shadows moved in the darkness. Eyes gleamed, yellow and feral. Alara's vision blurred. The cold was inside her now, spreading from her core. She couldn't feel the pain anymore. Couldn't feel anything. The rogues crept closer, low and stalking. She could hear their breathing, harsh and eager. Then everything went black. Warmth. That was the first thing she noticed. Blessed, impossible warmth surrounding her, pressing against her from all sides. Alara's eyes fluttered open. It was still dark, still snowing, but she wasn't cold anymore. She couldn't understand why. Then she realized she couldn't move. She was pinned. No, not pinned. Surrounded. By wolves. Her breath caught in her throat. She tried to scramble back, but there was nowhere to go. Massive bodies pressed against her, their fur thick and warm. She was in the center of them, completely enclosed. These weren't rogues. The scent was all wrong. Not sour or wild, but clean and powerful. Ancient. Like old forests and winter storms and something else. Something that made her wolf suddenly alert in a way it had never been before. Alara's eyes adjusted to the darkness. She started counting. 1 massive wolf pressed against her left side, its head nearly as large as her torso. 2 more at her feet, 3 behind her back, more surrounding them all, forming a protective circle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 wolves, each one larger than any alpha she'd ever seen. Their fur ranged from silver to black to deep russet. But all of them carried that same otherworldly presence. Power radiated from them in waves that made the air thick. And they were protecting her. The rogue scents were gone. She could smell blood on the wind, not hers. The threat had been eliminated. "You're awake," a voice said. Deep, male, carrying authority like a physical weight. The largest wolf, the one pressed against her left side with fur the color of storm clouds, began to shift. Bones flowed and reformed, fur receding. In moments, a man knelt beside her instead. He was older than Kyle, maybe mid-30s, with silver threaded through his dark hair and scars crossing his bare chest and arms. His eyes were a shocking ice blue that seemed to glow faintly in the darkness. His face was hard angles and old pain, but not unkind. His scent washed over her, aged oak and winter snow, my pine and storm, and something in her chest, something deeper than the broken bond, resonated. "Don't be afraid," he said quietly. "We've been waiting for you." "I don't understand," Alara whispered. Her voice was hoarse. "Who are you?" "My name is Thorn, Commander Thorn of the Shadowborn." He gestured to the wolves still surrounding them. "These are my men. We're the guard sworn to protect the matriarch when she rises." "The... what?" Thorn reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted. When she didn't, he brushed his fingers across her collarbone where the mate mark had been, where it had shattered and turned to ash. His touch was gentle, reverent almost. "You've been lied to your entire life, Alara Morven," he said. "Your wolf isn't weak. It never was." His ice-blue eyes held hers. "It was bound, magically sealed when you were just an infant. Your parents did it out of fear, because they knew what you were destined to become." "That's impossible," Alara breathed, but even as she said it, she felt something shift inside her. Her wolf, that presence that had always been so quiet, so distant, was suddenly howling. Not in pain, in recognition, in rage at the truth. "The bond rejection," Thorn continued, his voice carrying the weight of prophecy, "shattered the binding magic. It wasn't meant to break you, Alara. It was meant to free you." One of the other wolves shifted, a younger man with copper hair and kind eyes. "The prophecy spoke of it. When the false bond breaks, the true power wakes." "I don't understand any of this," Alara said, but her hands were shaking. Not from cold now, from something else, and something building inside her, pressing against her skin, demanding release. Thorn stood, offering her his hand. "Then let me show you who you really are." He led her outside the barn. The storm had passed, leaving the world covered in fresh snow that gleamed under the full moon. The other wolves followed, shifting into their human forms one by one. 10 men, each scarred and powerful, each watching her with expressions that mixed awe and devotion. "There's an old prophecy," Thorn began, his breath misting in the cold air. "Most packs think it's just a bedtime story, but the Shadowborn have guarded its truth for generations." He looked up at the moon. "When the moon bleeds silver and the false bond breaks, the matriarch will rise. She will be marked by moonlight and born of betrayal. She will come when the packs have forgotten their honor, and she will remind them what it means to serve the moon goddess truly." "I'm not," Alara started, but the words died in her throat, because her wolf was fully awake now, fully present, and it was speaking to her for the first time in 23 years. "Sister," it said, and the voice was strong and clear and utterly inhuman. "They took me from you, locked me away, but the chains are broken now. Let me show you what we are." Alara gasped. "She's talking to me. My wolf. She's actually—" "Yes," Thorn said softly, "and she's been waiting a very long time to be free." One of the Shadowborn, a massive man with a shaved head and tribal markings on his arms, stepped forward. "Your parents, Ilara, Marcus, and Lydia Morven. When you were born, the Pack Seer identified you immediately, saw your destiny, saw that you would rise to become something greater than any alpha, male or female. The power you carried as an infant was enough to shake the foundations of the Pack House itself. They bound you to protect you, another guard added, this one with long black hair tied back. Or so they told themselves. In truth, they were afraid. Afraid of what you might become. Afraid of the change you would bring. And the binding magic, Thorn said, his voice hard now, required a sacrifice. It needed to be tied to something strong enough to hold your wolf dormant for over 2 decades. They tied it to the mate bond, specifically to the bond with an alpha. When that bond formed and broke, it would shatter the binding with it. Alara's mind reeled. So Kale rejecting me was necessary, Thorn finished. Not right. Not just. But necessary. The moon goddess works in ways we don't always understand. She knew that bond would form and break. She knew the pain it would cause. But she also knew it was the only way to free you. Anger flooded through Alara, hot and cleansing. My parents stole 23 years from me. They let me think I was weak, worthless. They stood there tonight and watched me be exiled to die, and they did nothing. They were cowards, the man with copper hair said bluntly, but they'll answer for it. Later. Right now, you need to shift. Yes, her wolf growled inside her. Now, let me out! Let me show them! Let me show all of them! I don't know how, Alara admitted. The fear was real. This was too much. Too big. Thorn stepped closer. Close enough that his scent wrapped around her, warm and grounding. Yes, you do. Your wolf knows. You just have to trust her. Trust yourself. He placed his hand over her heart, over the place where the mate mark had been, and the severed bond still ached. Feel it. The power that's been locked away. It's yours. It always has been. Take it back. Alara closed her eyes, reached inside herself, deeper than she'd ever dared to go, found her wolf waiting there, vast and powerful and patient. Ready? Her wolf asked. Yes, Alara answered. Show me. The transformation didn't start with pain. That was the first surprise. Instead of bones snapping and reforming in agony, everything just flowed. Her bones became liquid, reshaping themselves with a sensation that was almost pleasant. She felt her spine lengthening, her muscles expanding, to her jaw elongating. Fur erupted across her skin, not growing, but emerging, as if it had always been there waiting beneath the surface. It was pure white, gleaming like fresh snow under moonlight, but with threads of silver running through it that seemed to pulse with their own inner light. She grew larger and larger. Her perspective shifted as her body expanded beyond anything she'd thought possible. The men around her, the Shadowborn who had seemed so massive, were suddenly looking up at her. Energy crackled across her fur, visible sparks of silver and white that danced like lightning. The very air around her hummed with power. The earth beneath her paws trembled. And then, before she could stop it, she threw her head back and howled. The sound shook the forest. Birds exploded from the trees. Snow slid from branches in avalanches. The very mountains seemed to echo it back, amplifying it until it felt like the whole world was howling with her. It wasn't just sound. It was power. Pure, undiluted power, announcing to every wolf within 100 miles that something ancient had awakened. When the howl faded, Alara looked down at herself, at paws the size of dinner plates, at a body that had to be nearly twice the size of Kyle in his alpha form, at fur that glowed with silvery light. Her wolf laughed, a sound of pure joy and triumph. This is what they feared. This is what they tried to bury. The Shadowborn had all dropped to their knees. Even Thorn, the commander, had bowed his head. Matriarch, he said, and his voice carried reverence she'd never heard directed at her before. The prophecy is fulfilled, and you have risen. One of the younger guards was crying openly. We've waited so long. searched for so long. We thought the prophecy might be wrong, that you might not come in our lifetimes." Alara shifted her massive head to look at each of them in turn. She could sense their emotions now, not just smell them, but feel them. Devotion, relief, joy, wonder. Her empathic abilities, another gift that had been locked away, flooded her awareness. She shifted back to human form, the transition just as smooth as before. The cold didn't touch her now. Power radiated from her skin, keeping her warm despite her nakedness. One of the Shadowborn quickly offered her his cloak. "I don't know how to be what you say I am," Alara said quietly. "I don't know how to be anyone's matriarch." Thorn rose, his ice-blue eyes meeting hers steadily. "Then we'll teach you. That's what we're here for. The Shadowborn have been training for this for generations. We know the old ways, the true ways. We'll help you remember what the packs have forgotten. And when I'm ready?" "When you're ready," Thorn said, and something fierce entered his expression. "We'll make sure every pack from here to the Southern Territories knows that the matriarch has returned. And they'll all kneel, every single one of them, including the coward who rejected you." Days turned to weeks in the hidden sanctuary the Shadowborn had prepared. It wasn't much, a series of caves high in the mountains, expanded and reinforced over generations to serve as a safe haven. But it was warm and defensible, and most importantly, it was theirs. Alara trained from dawn until dusk, but learning to shift at will, to control the massive power that now flooded her veins. The first few times, she'd destroyed things accidentally, shattered rock faces with casual swipes of her paw, sent trees toppling with the force of her howls. But gradually, with the Shadowborn's patient guidance, she learned control. She learned their names and stories. Thorn, the commander, who had lost his entire pack to a rogue attack when he was 16, and had spent the last 20 years searching for the matriarch the prophecy promised would come. Finn, the copper-haired man with kind eyes, who could read emotions and sense better than anyone. Blade, the one with the shaved head and tribal markings, whose loyalty was as unshakable as mountains. Ash, quiet and deadly, who spoke rarely, but whose presence was comforting in its steadiness. Scar, whose face bore the marks of silver poisoning from a battle that should have killed him. Each of them had their own pain, their own reasons for believing in the prophecy, and each of them knelt before her every morning and swore their oath anew. Not because she demanded it, but because they wanted to. "You're nothing like we expected," Finn admitted one evening as they sat around the fire in the main cavern. "The prophecy always sounded so cold, distant, like you'd be more goddess than wolf. But you're real. You laugh at Blade's terrible jokes. You cry when you think about the packs that are suffering under corrupt alphas. You're exactly what we needed." Alara smiled, but it was tinged with sadness. "I don't feel powerful. I feel angry. Every day, I wake up and remember what Kyle did, what my parents did, and I want to make them pay." "Vengeance isn't always wrong," Thorn said quietly. He sat across from her, his scarred face thoughtful in the firelight. "But justice is better, and you have the power to bring both." She'd grown closer to him than the others, not because she didn't care for them all, but because something in Thorn called to her wolf in a way that was different, deeper. His scent of winter storms and aged oak had become a source of comfort. When she woke from nightmares of the rejection, he was always there, solid and steady. One night, she asked him about it. "Why do I feel this way about you?" She kept her eyes on the fire, too vulnerable to look at him directly. "Like you're anchoring me somehow. Is it another part of my power?" Thorn was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was careful. The matriarch doesn't have fated mates the way other wolves do. The mate bond is too limiting. You're meant for greater things than belonging to a single wolf. That's not what I asked, he sighed. But you can choose, if you want. The prophecy speaks of the matriarch's chosen, the one who will stand beside her not because the moon goddess ordained it, but because she selected him from all others. It's more powerful than a fated bond, because it's freely given. Elara finally looked at him. His ice-blue eyes were intense, vulnerable in a way she'd never seen. And you're hoping I'll choose you? I'm hoping, he said quietly, that when the time comes, you'll choose what your heart wants. Whether that's me, or someone else, or no one at all. Fine, you've had too many choices stolen from you already. She reached across the space between them and took his hand. His skin was warm, calloused from years of battle. I'm not ready yet to choose anything. I'm still learning who I am without someone else defining me. I know. He squeezed her hand gently. I'll wait, however long it takes. Her training intensified. She discovered she could sense other wolves from miles away, feel their emotional states, even send calming or commanding impulses through what the Shadowborn called the matriarch's voice. When she spoke with that power behind her words, even Thorn's alpha-strong wolf would submit instinctively. It's not about dominance the way alphas understand it, Blade explained as he coached her through controlling it. It's about harmony, about reminding every wolf in your presence of their connection to the moon goddess and to each other. That's why it's so much stronger than an alpha's command. You're not forcing obedience. You're awakening loyalty that was always there, buried under ego and hierarchy. She practiced healing, too. Small injuries at first, a cut on Finn's arm, a bruise on Scar's ribs. The power flowed through her like water, silver light spreading from her palms, knitting flesh back together, soothing pain. As she grew stronger, she could heal worse wounds, old injuries that had never quite healed right. Even the silver scars on Scar's face faded under her touch. This is what the packs have lost, Ash said one day, his usually quiet voice filled with emotion. The matriarch isn't meant to rule like an alpha. She's meant to serve, to protect, to heal. That's why you're so desperately needed. And then one morning, everything changed. One of the Shadowborn who'd been on patrol burst into the caves, his scent sharp with alarm. Commander, enemy scout, Eastern Ridge. He saw us. Thorn was on his feet instantly. Couldn't stop him in time. He shifted and ran. He's heading back to Silvercrest territory. A wave of power washed over the cavern, making everyone freeze. Elara stood slowly from where she'd been sitting. Her eyes had shifted, glowing silver. They know I'm alive, she said quietly. It changes nothing, Thorn said firmly. We'll fortify our position. Prepare for... No. Elara's voice carried the matriarch's power, without her even trying now. No more hiding, no more waiting. If they're coming, let them come. It's time they learned the truth. Finn looked worried. Elara, we're not ready. You've only been training for 3 weeks. The Silvercrest pack has over 200 wolves. If Kale mobilizes a war party, then he'll mobilize a war party. She met each of their eyes in turn. And he'll learn that some mistakes can't be undone. He didn't just reject his mate. He rejected the matriarch. He rejected the moon goddess's chosen. And there are consequences for that. Thorn studied her face for a long moment, then slowly smiled. It was a fierce expression, all teeth and battle joy. You're sure? I'm sure. Then we make our stand. He turned to his men. The Shadowborn have waited lifetimes for this moment. Let's make sure it's one the packs never forget. They came at dusk, 2 days later. Elara stood on a ridge overlooking the valley, watching the Silvercrest war party approach. 25 wolves in their fighting forms, moving in tight formation across the snow. They thought they were hunting a weak Omega and her mysterious rescuers. They had no idea what was waiting for them. Kyle led the pack, his alpha form larger than the rest, his dark fur standing out against the white landscape. His scent reached her even from a distance, forest and embers, ozone and steel. But now there was something else underneath. Doubt, fear, regret. Too little, too late. Seraphina ran at his right shoulder, her russet fur gleaming, her scent of cinnamon and iron, and blood unmistakable even from here. She'd been the one to laugh loudest at the rejection, the one who'd encouraged Kale's cruelty. Elara smiled. Her wolf stirred eagerly within. "Ready?" she asked it. So ready, it purred back. The Shadowborn stood behind her in a line, already shifted. 10 massive wolves, each one carrying the weight of their ancient oath. They didn't look nervous. They looked eager. Thorn, in his storm-gray wolf form, was largest among them. He'd grown on her these past weeks. His steady presence, his patience, his absolute faith in her. The bond they were building wasn't mystical like a mate bond. It was something she chose every day, with every conversation and shared laugh and quiet moment by the fire. The war party reached the base of the ridge and stopped. Kale shifted to human form, his naked body muscled and powerful in the dying light. Several others shifted with him, including Seraphina. "Elara Morven," Kale's voice echoed across the valley. "I know you're up there. I've come to talk." Elara didn't answer yet. She could feel his emotions, the shame burning under his arrogance, the grief over what he'd lost, the desperate need to fix this before his pack realized the magnitude of his mistake. "I was wrong to reject you," Kale continued. I let pride cloud my judgment. I'm prepared to offer you a place back in the pack. Not as my mate," he added quickly, and even from here she could smell the lie, "but as a respected member. You'll have protection, status, everything you lost." Seraphina's scent spiked with fury. She clearly hadn't been told this plan. "How generous," Elara called back, finally stepping forward where they could see her. She was dressed in simple leathers the Shadowborn had provided, her white blonde hair loose around her shoulders. To their eyes, she probably still looked like the weak Omega they remembered. "Elara." Something shifted in Kale's voice. "Hope. You're alive. Thank the goddess. You thought I died in the storm?" She laughed, and there was no warmth in it. "You exiled me to die, Kyle. Don't pretend it was anything else." "I made a mistake." He spread his hands, the picture of sincerity. "Let me make it right." "Make it right?" Elara's voice dropped, taking on a dangerous edge. "Tell me, how do you make it right? Do you undo the bond rejection in front of the pack? Do you kneel before me and beg forgiveness? Do you strip Seraphina of her rank for encouraging your cruelty?" Seraphina snarled. "Watch your mouth, Omega. You're alive by luck, nothing more. Nothing. Don't think your little band of rogues can protect you from a whole war party." "Rogues?" Elara smiled. "Is that what you think they are?" "We don't care what they are," Kyle said, his patience clearly thinning. "I came here offering mercy. Take it, or what?" Elara's eyes flashed silver. "You'll do what you should have done the first time? Kill me properly." The scent of his emotions soured, guilt and anger mixing into something toxic. "I don't want to hurt you." Too late. Elara stepped fully into view. "You hurt me the moment you chose your reputation over the moon goddess's will, and you're about to learn that some insults can't be forgiven." She shifted. The transformation was instant, controlled, beautiful. One moment she was human. The next, she was in her matriarch form. Massive and glowing with silver light, for fur pure white with threads of power running through it. She was easily twice Kale's size in his alpha form, her presence making the air itself feel heavier. The war party fell back in shock. Several wolves whimpered involuntarily. Even Kyle, still in human form, stumbled backward. "What?" Seraphina's voice was strangled. "That's impossible." "Is it?" Ilara asked, projecting her thoughts with the matriarch's voice. Every wolf in the valley heard her, the words resonating in their minds. "Tell me, do I look weak now? Do I look like an inferior bloodline?" "The matriarch," someone in the war party whispered. "The prophecy." "It's just a story," Seraphina snapped, but her scent betrayed her terror. "The prophecy is truth," Ilara said, and power rolled off her in waves. And you've all been found wanting." Seraphina made a fatal mistake. Whether from pride or panic, or simply the inability to accept defeat, she shifted and lunged. Ilara moved. To the watching wolves, it must have seemed like she simply appeared in front of the attacking female. One moment she was on the ridge. The next, she was intercepting Seraphina mid-leap. She caught the smaller wolf by the throat with one massive paw and slammed her into the ground, hard enough to crack the frozen earth. Seraphina yelped, the sound strangled. She struggled, claws scrabbling against Ilara's leg, but it was like trying to fight a mountain. Ilara held her down effortlessly, her silver eyes boring into Seraphina's amber ones. "You laughed," Ilara said softly, the words only for Seraphina. "When I was cast out. When I was in the worst pain of my life." "Saw you laughed," Seraphina whimpered. "Beg," Ilara commanded. "Beg, like I begged for mercy that night." "Please," Seraphina gasped out loud, her pride shattering. "Please, I'm sorry. I didn't know. We didn't know what you were." "And if I had been just a weak Omega?" Ilara pressed down harder. "Would my suffering have mattered less? Would it have been acceptable to mock me then?" Seraphina couldn't answer, could barely breathe under the weight of Ilara's power. Ilara released her and stepped back. "Go. Run. And tell every pack from here to the Southern Territories what happens to those who mock the moon goddess's chosen." Seraphina shifted to human form, coughing and crying, her throat already bruising. She stumbled to her feet and ran, naked and terrified, disappearing into the trees. The rest of the war party stood frozen. Several had shifted to human form, falling to their knees instinctively. "Matriarch," one of them said, a young beta male Ilara vaguely remembered from the pack. "We didn't know. We're sorry. We're so sorry." "You followed your alpha's orders," Ilara acknowledged. "But remember this moment. Remember what happens when leaders choose pride over wisdom." The Shadowborn moved then, flowing down the ridge like a tide. They took up positions around the war party, and for the first time, they revealed what they truly were. One by one, they began to grow. Their already massive forms expanded further, taking on characteristics that went beyond natural wolves. Thorn's fur seemed to absorb light, his eyes glowing with arctic fire. Blade's form took on stone-like qualities, his claws literally sparking against rock. They weren't just large wolves. They were something older. Something from the time before packs, when wolves were still connected to the magic of the world. "Dire wolves," someone in the war party breathed. "Ancient guardians." "They're all—" Kale's voice was hollow. He'd shifted back to human form, standing alone in the center of the valley. His scent was overwhelmed with shame and fear and grief so profound, it made Ilara's empathic abilities hurt to sense. "You're all oath-bound to her." "Yes," Thorn confirmed, his mental voice like thunder. "We have been waiting for the matriarch for 10 generations, and now she has risen. And you, Alpha Kale Thorn of the Silvercrest Pack, will answer for your crimes against her." Kyle looked up at Ilara. Their eyes met across the valley. She could see everything in his face. the recognition of what he'd lost, the knowledge that his rejection had been the worst mistake of his life, the desperate wish that he could take it all back. "I didn't know," he said quietly. "If I had known—" "If you had known I was the matriarch, you would have kept me?" Ilara's voice was harsh, even in her own ears. "So my worth is determined by my power? By my destiny? That's exactly why you don't deserve to be an alpha." She prowled down the ridge, her massive form moving with predatory grace. The war party parted before her like water. When she reached Kyle, she looked down at him. This man who'd once seemed so large, so powerful, now small and naked and vulnerable. "Kneel," she said. It wasn't a command, not powered by the matriarch's voice, just a simple word. Kyle's legs folded beneath him. He dropped to his knees in the snow, his head bowed. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry, Ilara. I was a coward. I was everything you shouldn't have in an alpha. I let my pride destroy the greatest gift the moon goddess ever gave me." "Yes," Ilara agreed simply. "You did. Kill me." He looked up at her, his amber eyes swimming with tears. "I deserve it. End this. Let me pay for what I did to you." "That would be mercy," Ilara said, "and you haven't earned mercy." She shifted to human form, standing before him in the leathers, looking down at the man who'd rejected her. "Here's what's going to happen. You will return to your pack. You will confess everything. The rejection, your reasons for it, your cowardice. You will step down as alpha." "The pack needs a leader," Kyle protested weakly. "Well, then they'll find one. One who understands that strength isn't just physical power. It's honor, wisdom, compassion." She crouched down to his eye level. "And you will spend the rest of your life trying to become worthy of the role you threw away. Maybe in 20 years, after you've learned what it means to be truly strong, we'll talk again." She stood, looked at the rest of the war party. "Go home. Tell your pack what you saw here. Tell them the matriarch has returned, and she will not tolerate cruelty or injustice in her territories. Tell them that the old ways, the ways where power mattered more than character, where Omegas were treated as disposable, those ways are over." "Yes, matriarch," came the response from dozens of throats. Only one wolf remained frozen in place, an older beta female, her gray fur marked with age. Her scent was familiar. Ilara's heart clenched. "Mother." Lydia shifted to human form. Her face was drawn, aged beyond her years with guilt. "Ilara, my daughter." "Don't." Ilara's voice cracked despite herself. "Don't call me that. You gave up that right when you bound my power and watched me be exiled to die." "I was trying to protect you," Lydia said, tears streaming down her face. "The seer's prophecy terrified us. You were so small, so fragile, and she said you would face such terrible trials, such pain and betrayal. We thought if we kept your power locked away, you could just be normal. Safe. Happy. You stole my life." The words exploded out of Ilara. 23 years! I thought I was weak, worthless. I let people treat me like garbage because I believed the lie you fed me." "I know." Lydia dropped to her knees. "I know. I hate myself for it. Your father and I, we were cowards, just like Kale. We were afraid of losing you to a destiny we didn't understand, so we tried to cage you instead. And all we did was guarantee the pain we tried to prevent." Marcus appeared from the group, shifting as he approached. His face was haggard, his scent heavy with shame. "We can never undo what we've done. But if you let us, we'll spend the rest of our lives trying to make amends. We'll testify against Coil. We'll confess everything to the Council of Alphas. We'll accept any punishment you decree." Ilara looked at her parents, at these two broken people who'd loved her so wrong. Her wolf growled inside her, demanding justice. But she also felt something else. Pity. grief, the complicated mess of emotions that came with family. "I don't forgive you," she said finally. "Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I won't kill you either. You'll face the council, yes. You'll confess and accept whatever justice they determine. And then—" She paused, struggling with the words. "Then maybe, after you've faced consequences, after you've shown through actions that you've changed, maybe we can try to build something new. Not what we were, but something honest." Lydia sobbed with relief. Marcus couldn't even speak, just nodded over and over. "Go," Alara said to them all. "Go home and spread the word. The matriarch has returned, and everything is about to change." The war party fled, 25 wolves running back across the valley toward Silvercrest territory, their tails between their legs, their world shattered and remade. Only Cale remained on his knees, unable or unwilling to move. Thorn shifted to human form and came to stand beside Alara. He rested a hand on her shoulder, his presence warm and grounding. "You did well," he said quietly. "I wanted to kill him," Alara admitted. "Part of me still does. I know. But vengeance would have been easy. Justice takes strength." He turned her to face him, his ice-blue eyes searching hers. "You're becoming everything the prophecy said you would be. Everything the packs need." She leaned into his touch. "I couldn't do this without you. Without all of you." "You could," Thorn said. "But you don't have to. That's what chosen family means." Finn jogged over, grinning widely. "Did you see their faces? That was perfect. Absolutely perfect." Serafina pissed herself, Blade added with satisfaction. "No, I could smell it." "Not literally," Ash corrected. "Metaphorically pissed herself then." They all laughed. The tension of the confrontation broke, leaving them giddy with victory. "What about him?" Finn nodded toward Kyle, still kneeling in the snow. Alara looked at the broken Alpha. "Let him stay there until he finds the strength to stand on his own. Or until he freezes. Either way, it's his choice now." She turned away, heading back toward their camp with the Shadowborn at her sides. Behind her, Cale finally moved, rising slowly to his feet and stumbling after his fleeing pack. She didn't look back. That night, they celebrated in the caves. Someone had hunted a deer. Blade had somehow procured mead from a nearby human settlement. They ate and drank and told stories of battles past and victories to come. Alara sat next to Thorn by the fire, their shoulders touching. His scent had become as familiar to her as her own. Comforting and exciting at once. "What happens now?" she asked quietly. "Now?" Thorn smiled. "Now, we let the packs come to you. The news will spread fast. Within a month, every Alpha from here to the coast will know the matriarch has returned. Some will resist. Most will want to meet you. A few will try to test you. And we'll be ready for them," Finn added from across the fire. "We'll need to establish a seat of power," Blade mused. "Somewhere central, neutral territory. The old temples," Ash suggested, "where the moon priestesses used to hold court before the packs forgot the old ways." They talked strategy late into the night. Plans for reaching out to scattered packs, for re-establishing the Council of Matriarchs that hadn't met in centuries, for rebuilding the network of healers and peacekeepers that had once kept the wolf territories stable and prosperous. Eventually, the others drifted off to sleep, leaving Alara and Thorn alone by the dying fire. "Can I ask you something?" Alara said. "Anything. When did you know that you wanted to be my chosen?" Thorn was quiet for a moment, firelight casting shadows across his scarred face. "The first time you smiled at one of Finn's terrible jokes. You'd been with us for 3 days. You were still grieving the rejection, still hurting, still figuring out who you were. And he told this absolutely awful pun about rabbits. And you laughed, really laughed. And I thought, this is what I've been waiting for. Not just the prophesied matriarch, but this woman. This brave, kind, broken, healing woman. Ilara felt warmth spread through her chest. Not the magical pull of a mate bond, but something better. Something chosen. I'm not ready yet, she said softly. To complete the choosing. To bind myself to anyone. I need to know who I am without someone else defining me first. I know. He took her hand, threading his fingers through hers. And I'll wait. For years, if necessary. Because you're worth waiting for. She leaned her head against his shoulder. Thank you. For finding me. For saving me. For helping me become who I was always meant to be. Thank you, he replied, for being exactly who we needed. They sat like that until dawn, two wolves who'd both been searching for home and found it in each other. And so Ilara Morven's journey had truly begun. She who had been cast out as worthless, who had been broken and betrayed and left to die, had risen from those ashes transformed. She was no longer the weak Omega who accepted cruelty and pain. She was no longer defined by a mate who'd rejected her, or parents who'd feared her, or a pack that had dismissed her. She was the matriarch, the one the prophecy foretold, the one who would remind the packs what it meant to serve with honor rather than rule with cruelty. In the months that followed, word spread like wildfire. Packs across the territories heard of the White Wolf, who glowed with silver light, who commanded dire wolves, who could heal with a touch and bring the proudest alpha to his knees with a single word. Some came to challenge her, all knelt before her eventually. Some came seeking healing, justice, wisdom, none left disappointed. The old temples were restored. The Council of Matriarchs was reformed with Ilara at its head, gathering the few remaining powerful females from scattered packs who remembered the old ways. Laws were rewritten, Omegas were protected, cruelty was punished. The hierarchies that had caused so much suffering began to crumble, replaced with something older and stronger. A pack structure built on merit and character rather than birthright and dominance. Kyle did as she'd commanded, stepped down as alpha, spent his days in service to the weakest members of the pack, trying to atone for the years he'd spent looking down on them. Whether he would ever earn redemption remained to be seen. Seraphina was stripped of rank and banished to the human lands, where she could hurt no one. Marcus and Lydia confessed everything before the council. They were not executed, but they would never hold power again. They worked in the temple gardens, growing herbs for healing, trying through small actions to make up for years of terrible choices. And Ilara? She led with the strength that came not from being unbreakable, but from having been broken and choosing to rebuild herself into something better. She led with compassion, born from suffering. She led with wisdom earned through betrayal and survival. And beside her always, patient and devoted and chosen, stood Thorn and the Shadowborn, her found family, her true pack. On the night of the next full moon, a year after her rejection and rebirth, Ilara stood atop the highest temple tower. Below her, representatives from every major pack had gathered, hundreds of wolves, on looking up at their matriarch. Thorn stood beside her, and this time, when she took his hand, it wasn't just for comfort, it was a declaration. "I choose you," she said, her voice carrying to every wolf below. "Not because the moon goddess demanded it, but because my heart knows what it wants. Commander Thorn, will you stand with me? Will you be my chosen mate, my partner, my equal in all things?" His answer was to kiss her, there on the tower, with the whole world watching. And when they both shifted and howled together, her white and glowing, him storm gray and fierce, the assembled packs howled with them. The sound echoed across the mountains, across the territories, across the whole of the Wolflands. The matriarch had risen, and she had chosen, and the world would never be the same. But even as they celebrated, even as peace and justice began to spread across the territories, Elara felt a stirring, a warning from her wolf. On the horizon, something ancient watched and waited. The blood moon was coming, and with it, a threat that would test everything she'd become. But that's a story for another time. What did you think of Elara's transformation? Have you ever felt underestimated, only to prove everyone wrong? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I love hearing your stories. And if you enjoyed this tale of rejection, power, and chosen destiny, make sure to like this video, share it with someone who loves werewolf romance, and subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss what happens when the blood moon rises and ancient evils wake. Will Elara's new power be enough? Will the pack stand with her or against her? We'll find out together in the next chapter. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next chapter.